Thank you very much, Neil, and thank you for the invitation to speak to your group tonight. So, as you said in your introduction, I am the director of Unlock Democracy. Now, some of the people on this call may remember an organisation called Charter 88. We are indeed what was Charter 88. So our agenda is pretty much the same. And some of you may also be aware that prior to being the director of Unlock Democracy, I was a Lib Dem Member of Parliament for over 20 years. So I've seen politics from lots of different angles. And I was also a local councillor on two different occasions, one for London Borough of Hackney and once for the London Borough of Sutton. But the pitch I'm making to you tonight is in favour of proportional representation. And I believe that the UK is being held back by first past the post. It is a voting system that we share with Belarus and very few other countries around the world. And it's a system that drives short-termism in politics and confrontational politics. And I believe that the UK needs a progressive voting system, and that is where PR comes in, a system that is used, I think, exclusively in the strongest democracies around the world. And what would be the benefits of PR? I mean, first of all, a fundamental principle of PR is that it is a fair and just system. Very simply, it means that the number of votes cast for one party by supporters of that party determines how many members of Parliament, and I'm talking about PR for Westminster, how many members of Parliament are elected to represent that party. So it's fair, unlike the present first past the post system, where there is no direct correlation, or indeed it would appear indirect correlation between the number of votes cast for a party nationally and how many members of Parliament it ends up with in Parliament. I also favour PR because I believe it will be transformational for the UK in lots of different respects. First of all, in terms of continuity. Proportional systems which tend to lead to coalitions, albeit not always. There are proportional systems where one party has secured a majority of the vote, and that of Scotland and the SNP would be a good example of that. But on the whole, in systems with PR, governments tend to be coalitions, and they tend to be better at continuity when it comes to policy. Unlike first past the post, which unfortunately drives political parties to undo what the previous lot have done, spend a couple of years doing that, perhaps spend a year or two pushing their own agenda before then preparing for the next general election. So first of all, I think PR would be transformational in that respect. Another respect in which PR would be transformational is in terms of the people who get elected, because it's very clear that proportional systems tend to elect a more representative group of politicians than first past the post, and there's strong evidence for that in places like New Zealand, for instance. I support PR because it's popular. We are now in a position where, for the first time, I think just over a year ago, the British Attitude Survey confirmed that there was a majority of people in the country who now support PR. And for those of you who are following closely what is happening within the Labour Party, you'll know that there is now a very clear majority, over 80% of Labour members, who support PR, and a majority of the trade unions who support PR. So, and that is a demonstration of its popularity. And again, you'll probably be aware that proportional representation has been the policy of the Liberal Democrats for, I think, over 100 years, and for the Green Party, presumably since they were created. So there's popular support for it. It is deliverable, and it's deliverable partly for the reasons I've just set out in terms of the support that comes from certainly two of the parties, Liberal Democrats, the Green Party, and indeed the SNP and Plaid, but also now one would hope from the Labour Party, for instance, in a scenario where perhaps after the next election, Labour doesn't command a majority and require the support of one or other of the parties to form a government or to deliver a government programme. So it would be deliverable in those circumstances because there would be majority support in that parliament for it. It is relatively cheap to implement. And I say that because it's very clear that after the next general election, whichever party or parties are in power, the amount of cash that's going to be available to spend on anything is going to be quite limited. And I believe there's a strong case, for instance, for abandoning photographic voter ID, which is going to cost the country, according to the government's own impact assessment, up to £180 million over 10 years, abandoning that and instead using that to fund the implementation of proportional representation. So really, I think those are the 5 key reasons why I support PR. It's a fair and just system, it's transformational, it's popular, it's deliverable, and at a time of financial difficulties, it's relatively cheap for a government to implement, and there are ways that it could be funded. So the final point I would make is to repeat really that first past the post is not fit for purpose. We need a voting system that is, and PR fits the bill. Thank you, Neil.